What the hell is that? What the hell are you wearing?
It's my suit.
Where's the case?
What case?
Didn't you see the case?
What? Minor upgrade from Tony Stark. Oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. We finally get to share some footage. So trailer dropping tomorrow, there's just going to be some quick notes in my top 5 Spider-Man films. There are actually 7 Spider-Man films that almost got made though, so I talk about those extra ones too. There is a new round of the Spider-Man giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. Make sure to click that bell to enable alerts so that you don't miss out on anything. So my Spider-Man trailer video will post really late tomorrow night. In case you guys didn't know, they're gonna post it super late. So as long as you have alerts on, you will totally see it when it drops. So this is a version of the footage that they showed off at Brazil Comic-Con. It's just like a slightly different version because the trailer that they're dropping is much bigger. Typically when they show off Comic-Con footage, it's much shorter, it's much more jumbled up, but if you couldn't tell, he's jumping off the Washington Monument like he's on a field trip with his class. So like there's other people from his class there, but you can see how well Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan will work in this. Like he has to babysit Tony Stark, but they're kind of like brothers because they're almost the same age. But then you see him with the kid and he's just like, I gotta babysit the kid, hell. But this is the briefcase that we saw in the behind the scenes pictures. I talked a little bit about it when I broke down that Comic-Con footage, and I'll link that video at the end of this too. But just get hyped, so there's gonna be way more Spider-Man footage that nobody has seen before dropping tomorrow. But let's rank our top Spider-Man films. There are actually a couple Spider-Man films that you might not know about that did not get made. So most of you know about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire era Spider-Man, but there were a couple really crazy sounding Spider-Man movies that almost got made by the same people that made those Superman movies, the ones that kind of drove that franchise into the ground. But starting at the top, favorite Spider-Man movie of all time is still Spider-Man 2 Tobey Maguire era. That is still one of the finest superhero films of the modern era. Now I know there's been a lot of superhero movies since that came out, so it got knocked off the top perch. For a long time, it was my favorite superhero movie of all time. Just really well made with a really amazing villain performance from Dr. Octopus. But second favorite Spider-Man film is the first Tobey Maguire film. Yes, I think that both of the Tobey Maguire films, at least the first two, are better than the Andrew Garfield films. So that first Spider-Man film sort of rode the wave of really hopeful, awesome superhero films. It came out after Bryan Singer's X-Men film. That in my mind was the beginning of really good, big blockbuster superhero films, the Bryan Singer film. Then Spider-Man came right after that. It was like a 1-2 punch. It's like, oh my god, Spider-Man, what an amazing character. This is gonna be so awesome. But a lot of people felt like it was held back by Tobey Maguire's mopey performance. He wasn't Motormouth Peter Parker that Tom Holland is doing right now, and you really didn't get much of a chance to see him as a teenager. Like he grew up really fast in that franchise, especially in that first Spider-Man movie. But credit where credit is due, it gave us that classic Danny Elfman Spider-Man theme that became so iconic. The Danny Elfman theme is kind of like the John Williams Superman theme. It just became this instant classic. But the funny thing about Spider-Man 2 is that they used a Nickelback song to promote one of the trailers, and Nickelback is now used in some places as punishment for criminals. And just for reference though, Michael Giacchino is scoring Spider-Man Homecoming, so he'll be the person to write the new, hopefully iconic Spider-Man theme song. But number 3 was The Amazing Spider-Man, which I felt like was an interesting take on the character. It was really like the Tobey Maguire era Spider-Man, done with better technology in slightly different characters. They opted for Gwen Stacy instead of Mary Jane, but I feel like it was held back a little just by the fact that they had rebooted the Spider-Man franchise so quickly and done the almost exact same story. They did the origin story again, even though they kind of messed around a little bit with the villains. But it was still a really entertaining film. It was still a lot of fun to watch. But I feel like Andrew Garfield, not true Peter Parker still, kind of in the way that Tobey Maguire hit some of the bases, but just didn't ever quite encapsulate comic book Peter Parker. So number 4, Amazing Spider-Man 2, which just kind of fell apart as a film, just a little overstuffed because they were trying to create their Spider-Man cinematic universe before the big fallout at Sony, before they made the Marvel deal. So there were a lot of good things in that movie, but I feel like they kind of got lost in the shuffle just because it got so crazy and the film fell apart in the third act. So like one of my favorite things from that film was Jamie Foxx's character before they kind of pushed him over the ledge of super crazy. Like there was a note from Kevin Feige, like he gave them notes on Amazing Spider-Man 2, and one of them said, Jamie Foxx is doing some really amazing stuff, but we probably don't need to go inside his apartment. It makes him seem too crazy. But sure enough, they left it in the movie, and he started to seem just completely batshit crazy. But then, as you probably guessed, my number 5 pick is Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire film. Least favorite Spider-Man film that was actually released in theaters. Just because it suffered from the exact same problems as Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it didn't have a really great Jamie Foxx performance. The villains weren't quite as good. I did not like Topher Grace, even though I loved the idea that they were trying to work Venom into the canon, and it just started to fall apart under its own weight. You know, same problem of, hey, this is the third movie, so we gotta make it bigger, we gotta stuff more characters in there, without worrying about how it was all gonna fall apart under its own weight. So now that we have a new Spider-Man film coming out, I'm gonna have to rewatch all those. It's been a long time since I've watched some of those Spider-Man movies. But if you think a couple of those were bad movies, there was a Canon Films version of a Spider-Man movie that was in development. Bob Hoskins was going to be Uncle Ben. Tom Cruise was going to be a college-age Spider-Man. Now I know you're like, wait a minute, Tom Cruise is like in his 50s now. When was this movie going to be made? It was actually closer to 1990 because this was after that last Canon Films Superman film, which was in the late 80s. So they did all this development work. Dr. Octopus was going to be the villain, but they included all these non-canonical things. As you can imagine, the way they treated the Superman franchise, it was going to be the same deal for the Spider-Man franchise. So it would have been a bit of a nightmare. Luckily, Tom Cruise opted not to do it, so it all fell apart and the rights went elsewhere. But as much of a B Spider-Man movie horror show as that would have been, the one sad thing is that Stan Lee at the time wanted to play J. Jonah Jameson himself. So what might have been, I mean, he found his way into all the Marvel movies one way or another through his cameos, so we got there eventually. But then later James Cameron picked up the option, and then you had like James Cameron era Spider-Man. But he wanted to do the story of how Gwen Stacy died that they essentially did in Amazing Spider-Man 2. That was going to be a slightly more hardcore version. You've seen a lot of James Cameron films. So this was post-Aliens, 1990s era James Cameron. It would have been like a really big blockbuster, but also it would have been super weird. Like he wanted Edward Furlong for Peter Parker, which would have just completely thrown me out of the movie. But the really cool thing is that Lance Henriksen would have been his Green Goblin. Just, Lance Henriksen been in so many James Cameron films. So at that time, it would have totally made sense. But you have to imagine like a slightly more serious version of Green Goblin than say like Willem Dafoe, who played it extra crazy. Other people on his list, though, it gets even more crazy. Drew Barrymore as Gwen Stacy. Remember, this is about the death of Gwen Stacy. And Leonardo DiCaprio is Harry Osborn. Now, this is still pre-Titanic Leonardo DiCaprio, so he was a big star, but not nearly as big as he is today. So let me know in the comments, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie so far, assuming we haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, and do you think that Spider-Man Homecoming will be your new favorite after you see it? We can't really say how good it's going to be just because we haven't seen the whole movie yet, but we have seen Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker, so I'll say just seeing his performance in Civil War, in this trailer footage, he seems like a much more true version of the character, but they're doing the character in a way that they haven't done him before, just keeping him a teenage superhero trying to live in this bigger Avengers world with all the stuff that's been happening so far. So I am just so happy with the way things have gone down the last couple years with the Sony Marvel deal, and it gives me a lot of hope for Fantastic Four, other superhero franchises like the X-Men films. So the only bummer about the X-Men stuff is that Kevin Feige said that they are at an impasse with Fox. There is no deal that's going to be made anytime soon for that. But when people ask him about that, he's like, yeah, no, nothing has changed. I see them every once in a while because he was an executive producer on Bryan Singer's first X-Men film. So he's friends with all those Fox people, but on a business level, like they all have boards of directors, an army of lawyers and suits that are just shaking their heads. Nope, no deal, not going to do it. So Deadpool is going to be really awesome. Hopefully they can start making some really awesome X-Men films too. Because if Sony can get their shit together and do this Marvel stuff, then so can Fox. But what's going to happen is that after I post my Spider-Man trailer video, I will do a Q&A that next day. So be sure to leave all your Spider-Man questions, Avengers questions, Infinity War, anything that you guys want me to talk about. So later tonight, Arrow finale. I know a lot of you are asking for an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. video. I'll do that as soon as possible. So much craziness. Hopefully you guys are on break from school or you get some time off from work, but it's going to be nuts. So I'll be doing a ton of Spider-Man videos in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here to learn all about Carnage, and you can click here for last night's Flash finale video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.